Guys, would you take a look at this? This is amazing scenery that can be seen all throughout the coasts of California, especially in the San Francisco area. Here's one of the major ones seen just below the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in the San Francisco area, right next to the shoreline. What appears to be Roman like columns that once supported an ancient structure here in San Francisco. Looks like it's been buried with the soil and sediment of time. Look at that, guys. Is this the remain of the great Sidon and Tyre? Is this the same type of architecture that was used by the Philistines that Samson had to destroy? Well, let's take a closer look at these structures. Although they may look ancient to a lot of people, even a lot of people on YouTube are claiming that they are the remains of a Tartarian society that used to be in the Americas. I would have to give you guys the facts. This is in no way ancient at all. This was constructed in the 1970s. Look, when I first saw this, I was stunned. I thought this was proof that the Philistines or the Tyresians and Zidonians inhabited this area, created treasure cities and things of that nature. Then I realized, wait, is that rebar? Is that a steel pole? Is that a steel beam right there? Clear evidence of 20th century European workmanship, and definitely not any ancient workmanship at all. I was, in denial of this for a while. I showed this to my buddy. I said, this is absolute proof that the Tyresians and Zidonians, the Phoenicians, inhabited this area. They constructed great buildings, and they're trying to sweep this under the rug. Recently, they destroyed it. This is what the remains look like now. And I say, look, this is proof. They even destroyed it because people started posting about it on YouTube. Whole time, my buddy had to shake me back in reality. He said, "Man, look at this. This is not ancient." I was like, "Man, come on." But then I looked at it myself, and I discovered that there's rebar, there's a steel beam in the middle. Shout out to my buddy Mel, Aboriginal Truth, man. Go check out his channel. This dude is real smart. He's non-biased with it. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, this was made by white folks, or more so likely Mexicans, only about 50 years ago. Had to give my Mexican homies the credit because we all know they the ones that really built this. And this is California that we're talking about. So as you can see, it looks like it's decomposing. It looks like it's breaking down. It's crumbling down. That's why they had to destroy it for safety reasons. It's crumbling down. It's too dangerous to go around because it's crumbling down. This is actually just cement support pillars that they built because they were about to build the hotel a little bit closer to the shore, but they decided not to. What I'm trying to explain to you guys is, if we have a structure sitting there for 50 years, constructed in the 1970s, and it's already starting to decompose and break down and decay and weather and erode and crumble and collapse, Israelites were not in the Holy Land for 2,000 years now. So if in 50 years, a construction can look like this, what do you expect our buildings to look like now? A lot of them are buried under the ground in the mountains and have decomposed, been reclaimed by earth, reclaimed by nature, and they don't exist anymore. However, the only thing that nature will not reclaim is stone. So I'm going to be showing you guys the stone buildings that can still be found all throughout North America, proving without a shadow of a doubt that there was ancient society in North America that was advanced, and it wasn't just simply teepees and huts like they'll tell you the inhabitants of North America dwelt in exclusively. Brick, nature will take that back, because what is brick made out of? Ancient times, brick was just cooked clay. Over time, nature will take that back and it'll just be dirt. Wood, obviously we know any building that was made out of wood. The Holy Temple, for example, was made out of cedar wood. Nature would reclaim that over time. It would not last When the Spaniards went to Western North America, they denoted that they saw 7 cities of Cibola, which were 7 cities of gold in that area. They also denoted that they seen cities that had gates that were decorated with pearls and all kinds of precious gems, buildings of gold. They denoted that they seen people who had gold so commonly that they used it as spoons and things of that nature and bowls. They denoted that people in that area wore breastplates of gold upon their chest and all kinds of things. And then out of nowhere, when Spain discovered all this out of nowhere, Spain became the richest country on earth. Why? Spain basically occupied Western North America in the mid 1500s. But United States citizens did not live on that land until the mid 1800s. So we got the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. That's about 400 years of history that no one's talking about. That the Spaniards occupied Western North America. What were they doing in that land at that time? Well, they were making war with the Indians. They were destroying their architecture, stealing all their resources and sending it back to Spain. Why do you think Spain got so rich out of nowhere? They were not the richest country on earth until they occupied Western North America. Also, not only were they destroying the architecture, they were also destroying the native population of the land. I'm talking extreme massacres beyond your imagination, genocides, holocausts beyond your imagination. Nations upon nations were removed from the earth at that time. And then in the mid 1800s, when the United States citizens started to actually settle on that land, they finished the job going to the California coast and literally decimating all the native population that remained in California that the European destroyed. And it's a lot, I'm telling you. Okay, so let me explain something to you. That those buildings that the Europeans seen when they first laid their feet on Western North America were buildings built by the Canaanites, the Cushites, and the Mitsris. These were modern to that time. They had gates of pearl and precious, jewels and gold, and they had these buildings of magnificent architecture. European laid his eyes upon that and he killed everyone. He sicked dogs on these people. Cannons were being fired. Guns were being shot. Houses were being burned. Women were being ravished. Babies were being just crushed by horses. This was happening for about 400 years. And then nobody's going to talk about this. This was basically blotted from history. All those resources from those buildings were stripped down and sent to Spain. And this is why Spain became so wealthy out of nowhere. Let's start off with the Sage Wall that can be found in Montana, western Montana, and which is really close to the Idaho border. This wall is definitely of ancient origins, very similar to the walls that can be found in Peru, created by the pre-Incan people. Now, these blocks are huge, but first, before I show you how big they are, pay attention to this nub that you see at the edge of this block right here. That same nub can be found on the ruins of the blocks of many of the Peruvian structures. Here's another picture of it. As you can see, these stones are megalithic. They are very ancient. They go into the ground. They are cut in a way that, it matches. It looks as if it could be older than the ones in Peru because it's more weathered and eroded. As we can see, there's a large gap between these stones right here. It's not as precise, which means perhaps it has more erosion going into it. And perhaps that means it may be more ancient. Here's an aerial view of it, and as you can see, it's a perfectly straight structure. And just to compare other wall structures around the world, as you can see, these all look like they're younger than the Sage Wall. They all look like they're more intact. Here's a picture of people standing next to the Sage Wall, so you can just see the size of it. It had to have been built by giants or by people who knew how to levitate stone with frequency technology. Now, my theory is that these structures were built by the great Hamathite people. The people of Hamath were a Canaanite people who lived north of Israel. So, with that being said, since Montana is north of Israel, since this Sage Wall is north of the Holy Land in Western North America, my theory is this is a remnant of the ancient Hamath the Great. Scripture says that Hamath was basically a great and walled up empire, and this would fit that description. Now, even in the Mojave Desert, these are some pictures taken on the Mountain Spring Trails on the east side of Highway I-8. And watch what I'm going to show you. See those stacked stones right there? Nature did not do that. Ancient people did that. This is just a remnant of what those people left behind. This right here is a water trough for horses. It's a stagecoach stop that was built probably in the 1800s, but off in the distance you can see this random stone structure. Europeans didn't build these. They had no purpose of them. These just are found all throughout Western North America, and they just litter the landscape. Now let me show you the ruins of our brother Esau, which can be found in the Four Corners region, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. That is the land of Edom, where the ground is red, the earth is red. That is the land of Edom, the land of the red people. And as you can see, they built their houses in the clefts of the rock, just as it says in scripture. Look at that view. This is what those people would have seen when they walked outside. A lot of times these people are about 7,000 feet above sea level in these cliffs, and you know they're basically risking their lives and their children's lives just so they can live high up and not be on the ground. They want to be up next to the nest of the eagle, just like it says in scripture. As you see right here, next to one of the houses, there are some scratches in the wall. That was to actually sharpen some tools or perhaps even weapons, as we know these were warlike people according to scripture. You see here's some pictographs. Now here's some more cliff dwellers. Look at the situation of the building. It's built right at the edge of this canyon. This is right here what we call the Mesa Verde ruins. The castles were built by the Edomites, living literally in the cliffs and the clefts of the rock. You see this cleft of the rock right here, this basically intrusion in the canyon. That's where these ginormous, beautiful structures were built. Watch this. Still remains to this day because it's made out of stone. Now I want to show you guys this as well. This is what a fellow truther by the name of John Levi, his YouTube channel is very known. You can look him up, Jon Levi. He goes actually on walks throughout Western North America and shows the ancient society that was very present. And one thing that he found in the middle of Utah, in the middle of the desert, is these stacked stones right here. And he said he found hundreds of thousands of miles worth of these. They're all throughout the land, away from society as a whole, and have no explanation whatsoever, because these are remnants of our buildings. This right here could have been the top of a building, not the bottom, the top.
just because of how the sedimentary layers of the earth and the stratification builds up over time, you know, all these things would eventually get buried. By the way, John Levi knows that the Holy Land is in Western North America. He knows it. Shout out to John Levi. Here's a video of John Levi. He showed another rock stone structure right here on the side of the road. Now these, look, let me tell you something. They're, like I said, they can be found all throughout Western North America, and they're always gonna be just destroyed and crumbled up and things like that. And they rarely ever have any backstory behind them. This is how you know they were built a very long time ago. When the Spanish was coming in, they were cannonballing things down. They were destroying things. They were literally burning buildings that were made out of wood down to the ground. And a lot of stone cities they were also trying to burn down as well. We're going to get to that in just a minute. The Spanish came through and they were literally starting these forest fires in areas that were heavily forested, like California. And these forest fires would get so hot that it will melt the brick. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But right now, what do we see here? Stone structure. Europeans did not create this. Europeans, they like to cement bricks. You got to understand what European architecture looks like and what ancient American architecture looks like. This is ancient American. All right, it's just stacked stones. It could have had some type of mortar between it, but eventually, with the process of weathering and erosion, that would have just blown away as dust in the wind. Okay, and just stones stacked on top of each other will remain, because the mortar that they would use would just be a mixture of clay and water, and that will eventually just break down through seasons of rain, wind, and other types of precipitation and weather. That would just break that clay down, and it'll just blow away through the wind, and all you have left is just stones stacked on top of each other.
And this wall ran for over a mile that I chased it, and we also began to see brick buildings emerging everywhere. These walls and brick buildings in places with no roads. There's no road here. There's no way to get up here. And things really started to take a turn at this point. This wall was almost scary, how massive and out of place it was. Overgrown, covered up, buried in some cases, and I think induced. And though I love the sage and nature, I wish it was all gone, at least around these ruins. Like this, all zigzaggy, and let me roads zigzagging up and down the mountain. And here you can see the zigzagging. And there's ruins down in the canyon. There's ruins way up here as I'll zoom in and try to show you. And the roads are not roads. They're just overgrown. But clearly they were.
I want to show you this abandoned castle that can be found today in California. Of course, there's a backstory behind it. They said it was built by early European settlers, and today it's just in ruins. Although that could be a possibility, there's some things about this that doesn't make sense, like the literal melted bricks that can be found in the castle. I hope you know that California was known for having castles when the Spanish arrived, and I'll show you that on a very early map of California that already had castles in the picture before Spaniards even basically settled in California. So this is the 1569 Gerardus Mercator map, and as you can see, when we go to the Holy Land and we look at California, there's already castles in California. There's already castles in California. All along the rivers, there's castles, right? So when we look at California today and we see those castles, they'll tell you the Spanish built those. Well, in a 1569 map, there's already castles here. You understand? And California wasn't even discovered by Spain until 1542. So that's only 27 years between California's discovery and between this map being drawn. So you telling me all these castles were built in only 27 years? Highly doubt it. Castles typically take about 50 years, sometimes even up into the hundreds of years to be constructed. There is a Catholic castle that took 600 years to build. And we don't just see castles in, the California region. We can go all the way toward the East Coast and toward the South, and there's castles down here as well. You go into Mexico, it's full of castles, full of civilization. South America as well. Kingdoms upon the Amazon River, as you can see. They show the giants, the Patagonian giants. They show all kind of things. So, again, do you think it only took 27 years for all these castles to get built? And notice that even the castles, they're named. They have names on them. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like they just made it up or just drew something on a picture. Nah, these are real.
So I'm on Soda Canyon Road in Napa, and we're going to get some better views of what really is the structure. What is it? On top of the Soda Canyon Road, as you veer up right off of Soda Canyon, so there's another set of columns here, and this is the third set. Two of them are easily visible, and there's another set that are off the trail, and they're very colossal, but they're made out of materials that are very hard to work with. And then I've also noticed some evidence that suggests there was a tremendous amount of heat here, which damaged a lot of the rocks. So this appears to be cut and machined corner assembled basalt or granite. So amongst the hardest of the stones. Then on top of the column is this unusual ball. And what these are is this is a large ball of melted red brick, and it may be difficult to see that from this particular angle. And you go over to the other one, and it's the same situation. This is a melted brick ball, and you can tell that it was liquefied and dripping, and it's charred, but it may not be recognizable as red brick right now. So what I've shown you so far, but I will show you where it is. So looking at the column, you can see that this material has a lot of this looks like bubbling rock. This is an example of the wall construction that exists in the Greater Bay Area, all the way up into Northern California near Sonoma, Calistoga, St. Helena, Yountville, Napa, South Napa, American Canyon, Vallejo, and then you cross over onto Highway 80 and continue southward. And these walls exist of similar construction all the way to San Jose, and there's thousands of miles of them, and you'll hear a lot of different stories about who constructed these walls. A close inspection of the walls finds that many of them have been heated to very high heat, and that's usually pretty easy to see when you notice that one side of the stone is normal looking and the other looks like charcoal.
Now, those walls that he was referring to that can be found all throughout California is the East Bay walls, the mysterious East Bay walls of California. They're everywhere. absolutely everywhere in California. There's people saying that the Chinese built them. There's people saying that the Romans built them. There's people saying that the Phoenicians built anybody except for the people of America. Because the narrative is ancient Americans were primitive people who lived in only teepees and huts and had absolutely no technology or no civilization whatsoever. So they couldn't have built these multi-million unit walls throughout California. Because this would have took thousands of men. This would have took lots of money, right? This would take a lot of work to construct. These walls are tremendous. They stretch all around the state. They were probably constructed to differentiate different territories. Territories of Zebulun versus territories of Asher, for example. When archaeologists went to look at this wall, they confirmed that the stones, they do in fact go deep into the ground, which insinuates that they are very ancient. I want to show you this castle that can be found in California today. I want you guys to think about it. As we know in scripture, Israelites actually did in fact construct castles. And like I told you guys, early maps of California show that they had castles in California when the Spaniards arrived. So some of these castles may be built by the Spaniards, because when the Spaniards came on the land, they set up civilization. Yes, it is a possibility that some of these castles were built by the Spaniards, but which ones were built by people who were not Spaniards? Which ones were built by people who came before that? Look at these ruins of castles. We know that the Spaniards were shooting down these buildings, destroying these buildings. So why are these castles in ruins? Why are these castles in ruins if the Spaniards built them? They would still be standing if Europeans built them, because Europeans don't let their history go to waste. They never do. They got that Roman and Greek architecture over there still looking brand new because they keep it maintained. But they would never build a castle that looks good and just let it go to waste. Especially not to this extent. Simple weathering and erosion does not do this. So which castles were built by the Spaniards and which castles were built by the indigenous people who lived in California? Uh-oh. Look at that entrance. Look at that entrance. As you can see, the doorway is not perfectly square. When the European built a door, he built a door perfectly square, right? But when the American built a door, they built it like a key-like shape. And you can see this in some of the Edomite buildings and some of the cliff dweller buildings. They're called T-shaped doors, or they're called key doors. And this one just looks upside down. It's an American type door. The Spaniards did not build this structure. This is an indigenous American castle. Here we have another one. The top of a key-shaped door. As you can see, it's going into the ground because it's so ancient. Now here's some stuff that they will show you and admit that it's ancient American structures. Like they'll say this is a Puebloan castle of New Mexico. Look at how all these buildings are just in ruins though. You can still see that there is mortar left, so it's probably not that old. I wouldn't say this is This was built during the Israelite period. But yes, it could have been built just before the Spaniards arrived. But the point I'm trying to make is look how the buildings are all collapsed and broken down. Like I said, I'm not saying this is no 2,000 years old, 1,000 years old. This is more than likely just 600 years old. However, look at how they are broken down. Do you think time just does that? No. These were shot down purposely with cannon fire. This is a method that the Spaniards were using when they went to America and made warfare with the people in the land. Here's some more images of even more ruins that can be found all throughout Western North America. Now, of course, here's Montezuma's castle, again in the cleft of the rock. Here's a better picture of it. And just look at this. You have the building itself, and then you have like small little passages in the caves. Even more amazing. Throughout the Utah, New Mexico area, again, just shot down, collapsed. Time itself did not do this. These structures are only about 600 years old. They're not no thousands of years old. They should still be standing, but they're not because they were shot down by cannon fire. Like I'm telling you, that's what the Spaniards would do. They would shoot these buildings down because, for one, they don't want these people's legacy to be seen anymore, and for two, they were just straight up trying to genocide these people. They were just trying to kill these people and wipe them off the plane of existence. As you can see, here's some towers. You can find these all throughout Western North America, guys. Canada, Maine, Massachusetts, the entire New England territory are littered with megalithic stones and structures and walls beyond our understanding, right? In the forest of Canada, if you go in the forest of New England, that whole territory, we have 6-ton stones put together to make houses in that area. All of that, guess what? That was the ancient society of Babylon. The ancient society of Babylon still standing in ruins to this day. Babylon was flooded out, just like it says in scripture. Quebec was flooded out. And you know, I made a whole series proving that Quebec is truly ancient Canada. And here we are, we're looking at their ruins. They can be found all throughout that area. All throughout that area. As you can see, look at this. Look at this. This is an amazing picture. First of all, I want to point out two things. This stone right here, how much do you think that weighs? That has to weigh a solid at least 5 tons. At least 5 tons. Impossible for the average person to move. Ancient people must have did this. For some reason, ancient people were either just much stronger than us or just much larger than us, especially when we're dealing with ancient empires such as Babylon, Assyria, Hamath, Canaan, right? These empires were filled with giants, right? So look at this house. Again, think about it. If these stones are so big that it had to be constructed by huge people, then why is the height of the door so short compared to this woman? Because this stone structure got buried with dirt and sediment over time. And now it's sunk into the ground. There's more door underneath the ground buried to this day. When researchers asked the Native American tribes in this area if they built them, they all said they have no knowledge of who built these structures. Here's another one. Come on, these all throughout the New England territory. And then we have these walls, thousands of miles worth of walls found in the area. Huge. Would have took thousands of men to build this. Whenever you have these huge structures that you know would take thousands of people to help, that's how you know you had a huge civilization. It wasn't no tribe, it wasn't no village, it wasn't no little clan, it was a huge empire. And these walls, these stone walls, could be found all throughout the New England territory to this day. And if you live in that territory, you've seen them. And you know I'm not just making up stuff. A lot of them will have like these cut marks in them, and that we don't even know why. And to cut these stones are some of the hardest stones that we have. A lot of these stones are just solid chunks of granite, some of the hardest types of stones, and they have these cut marks in it. Stuff that you wouldn't expect just the average Native American to perform, right? Look at that. And then you also have broken block-like stones found on the forest floor in a lot of these areas. Huge society that once thrived in this area that's now just woods. And it's like you would think you're just walking next to rocks when you're walking in the woods. No, these were pieces of building material that once created a huge city where you're standing. And look, you see more of those little cut marks, right? Why do they have these? We don't know. See more in the edges, these little cut marks. They had some type of technology that they were using to precisely cut these stones. Now I gotta show you guys something out of my hometown state, Texas. In the early 1900s, they was digging in Texas in a city known as Rockwall, Texas. They were digging in this area and found a huge rock wall in the ground. And when I say huge, I mean huge. I'm gonna show you the size of some of these bricks, but just look. And these walls, this wasn't just one wall, guys. No. They found many walls in this area because it was an actual ancient city that was so old that it literally just got buried with dirt over time. But look at the size of these bricks, guys. This is no joke. They also found the skull of a giant in Rockwall, Texas as well. And I believe I talked about that particular article in my video where I explained all the newspaper articles about giants found in North America. I believe I did talk about this giant skull found in Rockwall, Texas. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, look at this, man. North America has a history that is biblical. You don't find stuff like this in anywhere else.